How's it going, everybody? My name is Mike Montgomery, and in today's video, I'd like to show you how I built this completely DIY home gym. I built this half rack that's both a squat rack and bench press, along with these DIY concrete weight plates. This is a super exciting project, and I can't wait to share it with you guys, so let's go ahead and get started on Modern Builds.
Each of the posts for this DIY half rack are 2 layers of 2x4s thick. I cut each of my pieces to length using a circular saw and a 12-inch speed square, and I'll make sure to leave links down in the description where I've got free plans on my website with basic cut lists and drawings. Now, I started by cutting a lot of 47-inch pieces, that way I could make 4 posts. 2 of those will be the base piece and the others will be the cross supports, which I ended up shortening. I used these 2.5-inch long Power Pro screws and plenty of wood glue whenever I combined these 2x4s together. I made sure to pre-drill holes before screwing everything together with an 1/8-inch bit, and I really like these screws. They countersink beneath the surface of the wood nicely.
And once everything is said and done, you should have 2 6-foot pieces, 2 5-foot pieces, 4 4-foot pieces, and 2 pieces cut to 19.5 inches.
Next, we're gonna go ahead and start assembling each of my side panels. I lined up all of my posts and clamped my pieces square before gluing and screwing everything together. I'm also using these heavy-duty lag screws that are 8 inches long to connect my posts. I wanted this joint to be as strong as possible, and so I added 2 of these on each of them. Having a set of right angle clamps like this are super convenient. I'll make sure and leave links down below to some. Now, if I were doing this project again, I would probably use 6-inch long lag screws instead of 8-inch long lag screws. I think it would end up being just as sturdy, but not as tough on my impact driver. This cross support is 19.5 inches long. That way the center post can be centered at 24 inches on the bottom plate. And this project does have a little wiggle room, so it doesn't have to be perfect, but make sure and do your best.
Awesome, now we just need to make one more. Woo! Moving on. I'm very excited and proud to announce that today's video is sponsored by Athletic Greens. Just 1 scoop of AG1 and 8 ounces of water, or 12 if you ask me, is the equivalent of over a dozen pills and capsules, and it really does taste great. Just 1 scoop contains 75 vitamins, minerals, whole food sourced superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens in 1 convenient daily serving. This basically fills the holes in your diet, and that's reassuring. I take Athletic Greens daily, and I noticed it first in my digestion, if I'm being honest, but now I crave it every morning, and I think it's an awesome part of my daily routine. If you've been watching my videos forever, then you may remember that, well, I used to be a little bit husky, but now I care a lot more about what I eat, and Athletic Greens is awesome for me. I basically consider it a nutritional safety net, filling in all of the gaps of what I'm missing in my diet. It's gluten-free, there's no eggs, no added sugar, it's nut and dairy-free, no GMOs, herbicides, or pesticides, and no artificial colors, flavors, or preservatives. And be sure to check out the link down in my description where Athletic Greens is offering a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3, K2, along with 5 free travel packs on your first purchase. The link is down below, athleticgreens.com/modernbuilds. Now let's get back to the project. Thanks.
I've always got leftover 3/4-inch radiata pine plywood, and I'm using these to create some support plates on all of my connections and corners. I made these brackets on the fly, and they're really simple. They extend 6 inches in either direction, that way there's a right angle support. The sides of these racks were already really strong, but adding these supports is gonna prevent racking even more forwards and back. And anytime I'm connecting 3/4-inch plywood to pretty much anything else, I use 1.25-inch screws. As you can see, the corner braces in the back have a 3/4-inch overhang. That way there's a clean butt joint whenever the other back support meets it. You'll see what I'm talking about in just a minute. And speaking of those back supports, I removed and countersunk the lag screws, that way they could sit flush also. I also did this to the front of the rack, and I think it makes everything look more super pro. And here you can see how everything assembles. The 2 side pieces are fully connected, and then each cross support is going to link everything together. I made sure not to glue these corner brackets into place because I'm just screwing them here so that I can hold them in place.
Oh no.
Now the floor of my shop is not perfectly level, so I needed to work each of my corners and just try and get it as best as I could. I glued and screwed everything as square as possible, and then I chucked up a 1/2-inch bit on my drill. I used these 4.5-inch long bolts to connect these pieces together since these brackets don't have any wood glue. I don't trust the strength of wood screws alone, so using these bolts will make sure that these joints are just as strong as the others. Installing the first set went well, so I repeated those steps on the second. These heavy-duty corner brackets are the only pre-made ones that I used for this project. I had a little bit of a problem with the front of the legs trying to splay out, and this cinched everything square. At this point in the project, I could sit back, take it all in, and realize we are crushing it. I want all of my mounts and accessories for this rack to be adjustable, so every 3 inches, starting at 9 inches, I drilled more 1/2-inch holes. I'm not gonna lie, this took a ton of time, and I think almost burnt out my drill. I used a lot of different length bolts throughout this project, so I'll make sure and leave a products and materials list in my free plans or down in the description, somewhere. Most power racks and bench presses use what are called J-hooks to hold the barbell in place, and I'm basically making some out of 2x4s. Each of these is made up of a 7.5 and 6-inch long piece, and this will create a ledge that the bar sets in. I used a 5/8-inch drill bit on all of my accessory pieces, that way I was sure to have a little bit of wiggle room whenever I was mounting them onto my posts. I am not doing precision milling here, so it's important that I know my tolerances. And I didn't feel any need to throw any wood screws into these brackets, so I just clamped everything down, but you can see how the bolts thread through here. These tightened down really fast, and I didn't have any problems with the bolt being able to spin if I just held it with the other hand.
I'm using wing nuts on the back of these bolts, that way I can move everything more easily.
And now it was time to throw on my 7-foot bar and check everything out.
Oh no! What have I done? And that is not super pro. So this is obviously a rookie mistake I should have avoided, but I am very thankful that I did not glue in these cross supports. Originally, I just wanted to be able to break this apart, store it, and move it more conveniently. But now I'm gonna cut 6 inches off the end of each of these cross supports, reinstall them, and we should be good to go.
Each of these pieces started at 47 inches long, the same as my bottom posts for my side panels, but I ended up making them 39 inches long, and that is what is included in the plans. No matter what, just make sure and measure the width inside of your grips so that everything's gonna work for you.
Super pro. I figured it would be a good idea to build 2 sets of these brackets, that way I can have one set at squat height and another for bench press. I decided to make a whole second video on this weight bench. I thought it would be useful considering how expensive they are, plus this video was already getting pretty long. Perfect. And next I'm gonna show you how to build these spotting bars for a little extra safety, plus we're gonna strength test these. Let's get started.
I started by cutting the back support of these spotting arms to length first. After that, I cut it to 3 inches wide, which is the thickness of 2 2x4s, because I'm using a 3/4 inch plywood panel on each side of this support to make my arms as heavy duty as possible. Then I drilled 2 more mounting holes, measured 6 inches apart. That way I can use the same bolts for all of my accessories. Then I used my 12-inch speed square again to lay out lines for more corner brackets. Each of these spotting arms have 2 3/4 inch plywood supports on either side of the spine. I sandwiched the 2x4s on the inside so that it would stay consistent all the way through, and then I capped it with another 2x4 on top. Now I won't lie, these aren't quite as easy to throw on as the barbell mounts, just because it's a little difficult for me to get my hand between the plywood to hold the bolt if I need to.
There you go.
It really is awesome that it only takes about a minute to move these spotting arms up from bench press height to squat height. It's not quite as fast as what you would buy off the shelf, but still really convenient and way more affordable.
All right, clearly the last thing I need are some weights, and I am gonna DIY those as well. This 2-inch PVC is the critical component to this whole project. I used my circular saw and a speed square to cut it to the same height as a 5-gallon bucket, and as you can see, it slides over an Olympic bar perfect.
This means I need that PVC pipe to stay integrated into my concrete, so I used a round file to carve out these shallow grooves in the pipe. That way the concrete will mold around it and hold it in place forever. I used this Loctite Power Grab construction adhesive that bonds really quickly to attach the PVC to the center of my 5-gallon bucket. I used duct tape to make sure everything was setting straight. Then I used a wet cloth to clean up any excess construction adhesive. I'm mixing up one 60-pound bag of quick-reat concrete for each of my weights. It is convenient to know that a 60-pound bag always has a little extra than what the label says, but as I worked, I tried to do everything as consistently as possible without making too big of a mess. I didn't want to spill concrete and make one weight lighter than the other. The mix I made here is a little watery, which can cause concrete to crack. Just be sure to get as much of that concrete in as possible. I used a rubber mallet to vibrate as many air bubbles out as possible, and then I made sure to shim my bucket so that they were sitting square to the earth. About a week later, my buddy Ben Ueda from the channel Homemade Modern, who is the concrete expert, was over at my place, so we decided to take these weights out of the buckets. Per his advice, we flipped the bucket upside down and knocked the weight loose using a rubber mallet.
Gently tap on that backside.
This worked great, and we were able to keep the bucket.
And that's it. Here we go. Concrete weight plates are a success.
Sorry to all the real woodworkers out there, but I used my flush trim saw to cut all of the excess PVC that was sticking out of the top of the weights. And then over the next week, I let my concrete cure more, and I was really surprised to see that the weight stabilized right around 69 pounds even, which I'm not gonna make a joke about. I'm sure you already thought of one. Oh, and just for context, this 60-pound bag weighs right around 63. So the weights have about 5 or 6 pounds of water in them. And I made sure to throw on a clamp on either end so that this was safe. And this project was done. So there you have it, a completely DIY home gym. I'm calling this the Flintstones gym right now. It works great as a squat rack and just as well as a bench press setup. With the weights and the bar, I've got about 185 pounds here, but I really want to keep experimenting more with these concrete plates. I think they look cool, and standard plates are so expensive. I was inspired by and based a lot of my dimensions off of this half rack sold by Rogue Fitness. It's really cool, but you're gonna end up paying over $1,000 after you get a bench, rack, and accessories. This DIY setup is compact, versatile, and it looks like production gear, even though it's made out of wood. And I am definitely not a gym bro, so having this setup should hopefully encourage me to work out a little bit more often, which is always good.
So seriously, thanks a ton for watching. Make sure and click subscribe and that notification bell down below. That way you stay updated every time I post new videos. If you build something like this, make sure and tag me on Instagram. I love to see y'all's projects, and we will see you next time on